Another folder that you can find here is factions. So here you can see the default asset of all factions of the game, including civilians. You will find the base blueprint for the factions, the faction table, the two enum of alliance and theater of operation, the base entry for any kind of faction, and the base entry for any kind of faction related game mode sound. So that's basically the sound which are played when you start a game and your commander in localized voice tell you attack this objective, in example. So let's start by the blueprint structure. So here you will be able to find the short name and display name descriptions. This sound, as we speak earlier, will also find flags and banners. The last category is the grouping strategies. So that what is now used in order to customize the different category of roles that you can see in the deployment screen. So when you have is categories checked, or also something which lets you collapse two roles together. So when this is unchecked, it will basically collapse the role which have this target tag, light and anti-tank. That's something which is exploiting the new tagging system of roles. So let's take an example USA. So you will find the legacy data table of voice. You will find that this is a blue 4 faction, and you will see the list of theater of operation where this faction can spawn. So that's basically all of it. And finally, you will find that the unique ID is US and it's linked into the faction table. Let's now have a look at faction setup. So here you will find the base blueprint for a faction setup, the enum of tags, the enum of types, and the base entry on data table. So again, we have single monolithic faction setup table, but this gonna be breakdown in individual part for each faction. It's already something half done, because you can see here that in example you have the faction setup of MEA. So in a faction setup table, you will find the short name again, display name, description, unit badge. As you can see here, you will find the new UI badge, the team overlay image, which is visible on the team selection screen, and the outer faction ID. Again, this needs to be absolutely exactly the same ID as the faction ID. So if we look again as the faction MEA, let's load it quickly. So here you will find MEA. So this is how we link a division to a unit. It needs to be the exact same ID. And this is a pattern that you will find everywhere. So this ID is set here in the entry. It's for synchronization over network. We need to have that ID duplicated in the entry, because this entry is also, if you look at any kind of division of MEA, you will find also this ID into the outer faction ID. So here in the MEA mechanized third King Kadesh divisions, you will find here as faction ID MEA exactly here, which brings us to a faction setup. So here you have a single part which is here runtime. That's something which is generated at runtime from the addition of UI grouping strategies into the faction setup table and the faction, meaning that this is additive. This also means that you can have more role categories into a particular division, or more collapsed roles into a particular division again. That's why this has been added here, so you never have anymore to edit the deployment script. Out of this runtime part, you will have also this unique ID of a division linked to a division table specific to MEA, and you will have a faction setup type. You will have all this type of division for now. Single use is specifically reserved for our legacy layer, or for an example a faction setup that should not be voted on. So if you have a specific division of insurgent in example which is tailored for a single layer, you will tag it single use, so it's never pulled in anything else. You will have a list of tags which currently could be date based, and you can also have the flag of commander action near vehicle, which is actually checked only on insurgent and militia, and buddy rally again only in insurgent. You will find also the default role, default squad leader role, and leave squad roles. Last thing and more important thing is the array of roles, the deployable and vehicles. So here we go quickly on that, but every entry in any of these arrays link a settings. So in that case the recruit roles, or in that case the pilot role, and a limited count, an array of other restrictions, delays, and cost. In that particular case of role system that we have right now, we have usually very macro type of limitations, like role rifleman scope or role light machine gun scope, which correspond to the automatic rifle 02. This gonna evolve in the next month. But the idea is that when you customize or create a new faction, you will basically be able to use these conditions to be exactly close to the actual settings and balancing of the game. On the deployable, you will have more things. So if we look at the radio, you will find that in other restriction, you will have, for deploying a radio, a restriction that prevents you to spawn it within a fob, another restriction which requires teammates, an alternative restriction which requires teammate if you are crewman, and logistic requirement. We'll have a quick look on all of this. So a logistic requirement asks you to have either a logistical vehicle or an utilitarian helicopter in a range of 30 meters from the same team of you, and you need at least one. And again, this is an asset with a unique ID. On the teammate recruitment, if you have light vehicle ability, again in a circle of 30 meters, you will need two people from the same team. That includes yourself, so that means you need one teammate. If you are another type of squad leader, if you have like heavy, so you're a crewman, a squad leader crewman, or a squad leader pilot, you will require 4 people of the same team in that exact same circle of 30 meters. So that means 3 people on top of you. And again, it has like an unique ID. And this table exposes you the reason why you cannot spawn this radio on the UI. So that's here that comes from the text that will be displayed as a notification in game. And finally, you will have vehicles. So in that division, you will have a Sapphire Logistic in example, with a delay of a logistical vehicle and always 4 vehicles per team. So these always 4 vehicles per team are located in that particular folder, which has a lot of template configuration for quads. You will have also later on this max per team setups. These max per team setups are scaled against the player count in example. So that's all for our faction setup.